Have you ever wondered where the next big economic opportunity lies, or maybe how to spot sectors that are just poised for explosive growth? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into an economy that's not just growing, it's absolutely thriving. Our focus is the dynamic and incredibly promising Philippine economy. Specifically, we're looking at the top 10 high profit business ventures identified for the years 2025 and 2026. Our mission, really, in this deep dive is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from this comprehensive analytical report we've got. We're talking market drivers, profitability metrics, strategic imperatives, all the good stuff, so you can understand what truly matters without, wading through pages and pages of data yourself. Think of it as a shortcut to getting well informed about one of Southeast Asia's most exciting markets right now. Okay, let's unpack this.
And it really is a fertile landscape. This optimistic outlook for the Philippine economy, it isn't just guesswork. It's actually built on a pretty solid foundation of strong macroeconomic performance. I mean, look at the Asian Development Bank, the ADB. They're forecasting a significant GDP expansion, 6.0% in 2025, and then speeding up even more to 6.1% in 2026.
Wow, 6% plus. That's serious momentum compared to maybe more developed economies.
Exactly. While many places might be happy with 1 or 2%, the Philippines is projected to be sprinting at over 6%. That kind of pace, well, it consistently puts them among the global leaders. It signals huge momentum for entrepreneurs, for investors. And it's not just out of the blue, right? It builds on a robust base. The economy already expanded 5.4% year on year in the first quarter of 2025. That was driven mostly by wholesale and retail trade, a dynamic financial sector, and a resilient manufacturing base.
Okay, so the foundation is strong, but what about external factors? Global uncertainty, things like that.
Yeah, good point. We do have to acknowledge potential external headwinds. Things like global policy uncertainty, maybe revised growth forecasts in major economies. That's always a factor. But what's really remarkable is the resilience of the Philippine economy. It really stands out. And that resilience, it stems primarily from its main engine, a really powerful and consistent domestic demand.
You mentioned vigorous domestic demand as the primary engine, but what specifically is fueling that? Is it just like more money in people's pockets, or is something else driving that spending?
It's actually a very positive mix of factors. A key component is benign inflation. That's really critical for fueling that domestic engine. The ADB forecasts here are quite positive. Inflation is expected to stay comfortably within the government's target range, 2.0% to 4.0%. It's averaging about 3.0% in both 2025 and 2026.
3% inflation? That's quite manageable.
Very manageable. And it's a significant shift from previous times with higher inflation. It's helped by moderating global commodity prices, but also proactive government measures to stabilize local food prices. And this view is backed up by BMI research, too. They expect this benign inflation plus maybe lower interest rates down the line to power a pretty substantial 5.3% increase in real household spending in 2025.
That's a powerful combination. Stable prices, potentially lower interest rates.
Huh.
Yeah, I can absolutely see how that translates directly to more money in people's pockets. And importantly, more confidence to spend it. Seems like the stars are aligning for a consumption surge.
Precisely. And this rising consumer power, it's amplified even more by a very tight labor market. The jobless rate was impressively low, 4.3% back in January 2025. That means more people are working, earning. And it's not just jobs. Household incomes are also getting a boost from recent regional minimum wage hikes and something really critical for the Philippines, those consistent remittance inflows from overseas Filipino workers.
Oh, yes. Remittances are huge there.
Absolutely huge. So all these things come together to create what the report calls a powerful demand-side catalyst for consumer-facing businesses. And this isn't just a forecast, it's happening now. Household final consumption expenditure grew by a solid 5.3% in Q1 2025.
Okay, so what does this all boil down to for someone listening?
The core insight here, I think, is that the Philippines isn't just growing, it's spending. With stable prices, more money around, strong employment, this market is basically a demand-side gold mine for consumer-facing businesses. It offers a uniquely stable foundation, something you don't always see in economies expanding this quickly.
That's a fantastic overview of the economic fundamentals. Really paints a picture. But okay, beyond the raw numbers, what are the real forces shaping these specific opportunities? The report mentions 4 powerful thematic currents transforming the economy, concentrating the most lucrative opportunities. Can you walk us through those?
Absolutely. And these aren't just random trends, right? They're the underlying currents really pushing specific sectors forward. First up, and it's a big one, Pervasive digital transformation. I mean, we're talking about a country with over 76 million internet users.
76 million.
Yeah, and they're spending an average of 9 hours online daily.
9 hours. Wow.
It's staggering, almost half their waking hours. This hyper-connectivity, it's just supercharging the growth of the digital economy.
Hmm.
It's projected to hit something like $35 billion by 2025. So naturally, this theme underpins the huge potential we see in e-commerce, digital marketing, tech-enabled services.
And I guess that deep digital immersion feeds directly into what people need day to day, especially as their lives become more urbanized, right?
It's exactly spot on. That leads us right into the second thematic driver, accelerated urbanization and lifestyle shifts. As more people move to cities, as urban centers grow, the demand for convenience just skyrockets. Increasingly busy urban lifestyles, they create these consistent, non-discretionary needs for things that save time and effort. That's why you see massive opportunities in, like, on-demand services. Think mobile car washes, modern laundry shops, efficient food delivery. These businesses cater directly to those time-poor professionals, students, families in dense urban centers. It's about adapting services to how people genuinely live now.
Makes sense. Then we have this fascinating shift towards rising health and sustainability consciousness. This feels like more than just a trend, right? It seems deeper.
Oh, definitely. It's not just a passing fad. It
Hmm.
represents a growing consumer segment that's genuinely mindful about their health, their wellness, and importantly, their environmental impact. And this awareness, it's carving out some incredibly profitable niche markets. We're seeing businesses pop up offering organic and natural products, specialized wellness services, genuinely sustainable solutions. Think renewable energy, for instance. It's really about more than just the product itself. It's about aligning with consumer values. People are actively seeking out businesses that reflect their growing concerns.
Okay, and the last one the report highlights is strategic government priorities. It's one thing for trends to emerge organically, but it's another when the government actively steps in to foster them. How's that playing out?
Yeah, this is key. The Philippine government isn't just sitting back and watching. They're actively fostering these trends through policy, through direct investment. You've got programs like the Build Better More Infrastructure Initiative, pouring capital into physical connectivity. That's huge. At the same time, there's a strong push for renewable energy adoption under the Renewable Energy Act. And various agribusiness modernization initiatives are creating a genuinely supportive policy environment.
So, direct investment opportunities in aligned industries.
Exactly. It provides an extra layer of stability, an incentive for new ventures in those specific areas. So the confluence of these four factors, strong domestic spending, rapid digital adoption, this rising consciousness for health and sustainability, and supportive government policy, it creates this powerful, self-reinforcing cycle of growth.
Got it. So, the big takeaway.
The takeaway here is that these opportunities aren't random. They're part of this reinforcing cycle. It makes certain types of businesses, consumer-facing, digitally enabled, strategically aligned, particularly attractive and resilient. Let's dive into the specifics.
All right, perfect foundation. Let's zoom in now on those specific gold mines. The report flags digital frontier ventures as particularly ripe. Why? Well, because this profound digital shift isn't just a trend anymore. It's changing the whole fabric of business, creating really fertile ground for innovation.
And leading that digital charge is e-commerce and dropshipping,
Yeah.
really capitalizing on the digital marketplace boom. The report doesn't just say the Philippine e-commerce sector is growing, it talks about an explosion. It truly stands out as a premier opportunity.
Why?
Immense scale, high growth velocity, and pretty accessible entry points. Let me give you some numbers here. The market hit US $28 billion in 2024. It's projected to surge to US $40.5 billion by 2027. That's a compound annual growth rate, EAGR, of 13%.
13% CGR. That's really strong growth year on year.
It is. And what's maybe even more striking is that the Philippines saw 24.1% year-on-year growth in online retail sales in 2023. That made it the second fastest rate globally, just behind Mexico. This incredible expansion is driven by, well, that massive base of over 76 million active internet users we mentioned, plus increasing trust in digital payments. And just the sheer convenience of platforms like Shopee and Lazada, they've really become integral to daily life for Filipinos.
So it's not just the number of users, it's how deeply embedded these platforms are. Okay, what about profitability? What do the numbers look like, especially for something like drop shipping, which has such a low barrier to entry? Seems like margins could be tight.
Well, the profitability, as the report points out, it really varies. It depends heavily on the model you choose, the niche you target. You might see broad industry data for internet retail, suggesting pretty modest net profit margins, maybe around 0.8%. But that figure is often skewed by the big low-margin players. If you look at more specialized agile models, the returns can be significantly higher. Take drop shipping, for example. Famously eliminates holding inventory, right? That can yield net profit margins somewhere between 15% and 20%.
15 to 20%. Okay, that's not bad.
Not bad at all. But success there, of course, hinges on your marketing and finding reliable suppliers. That's crucial. Now, if you move into more curated models like niche subscription boxes, especially in high-demand sectors like health, wellness, or beauty, those can command even higher margins, potentially
Yeah.
20% to 40%.
40%. Wow.
The drivers here are the low startup costs inherent in these digital native models, the incredible marketing flexibility you get with social media and influencers, and the ability to leverage the massive user bases already on the big marketplaces.
Sounds incredibly promising, especially for a lean startup. But okay, with so much online activity, so many new players potentially jumping in, how is the government ensuring, a level playing field and building consumer trust in this space? That seems vital.
That's a critical point, absolutely. A really pivotal development here is the full enforcement of Republic Act number 11967. It's known as the Internet Transactions Act, or ITA. That kicked in fully in June 2025. This law basically professionalizes the whole e-commerce landscape. It introduces some really important regulations that entrepreneurs must navigate. First, mandatory registration. All online businesses, doesn't matter the size or platform, now need to register. Sole proprietors go to the DTI, Department of Trade and Industry. Partnerships, corporations, they register with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. And then everyone has to register with the BIR, the Bureau of Internal Revenue.
Okay, so registration is step one. What else?
Second, the ITA mandates full disclosures and consumer protection. Sellers have to provide clear, complete info for all products. Price, brand, condition, their own contact details. They also need accessible ways for consumers to get redress and secure payment methods. And here's a big shift. Platform liability. Marketplaces like Lazada, Shopee, they can now be held solidarily liable with their sellers for damages from illicit or non-compliant transactions if they fail to act.
So that puts the pressure on the platforms themselves to enforce rules.
Exactly. It's a huge incentive for them to be stricter. And finally, to encourage compliance, the DTI is developing something called the Philippine E-commerce Trust Mark. It's basically a seal of quality, trustworthiness for businesses that follow the rules.
That sounds like a really powerful step towards formalizing everything. Okay, what about the practical side, scaling these operations? And what are the inherent risks people should watch out for in such a dynamic space?
Well, the scalability, especially for drop shipping, is exceptionally high. Because you outsource inventory and fulfillment, you can really focus your capital, your effort on growth drivers like marketing, customer acquisition, brand building. But that scalability comes with risks, that low barrier to entry. Ironically, it creates intense competition, can lead to price wars, margin erosion. You're also heavily dependent on your third-party suppliers for product quality, shipping times. That makes you vulnerable to stockouts, logistical mess-ups, things that can really damage your reputation. And of course, being digital means exposure to cybersecurity threats, online payment fraud.
Right, those are definitely things to keep in mind.
The real takeaway from the Internet Transactions Act, though, is this. Anonymity. That's over. What's in? This idea of a trust premium. Businesses that are fully compliant, DTI certified. They're not just following rules. They're building a monetizable asset. This isn't just a cost. It's your competitive moat. It lets you potentially charge more, secure loyalty, in a market where trust is becoming the absolute key currency.
Trust as currency. I like that. Okay, so if people are spending 9 hours online, they definitely need ways to find things, right? Which naturally leads us to our second digital venture, digital marketing and creative services. What's making the demand for these services so robust in the Philippines right now?
Well, the demand isn't just strong. It's basically become a fundamental operational necessity for almost any business. It's directly fueled by that deep digital immersion we talked about. 76 million people online for nearly half their waking hours. With the domestic e-commerce market projected to shoot past $10 billion by 2025, having a solid digital presence isn't optional anymore. It's the primary way to reach consumers. So this has created a massive ongoing need for a whole range of services: SEO, social media management, content creation, video editing, paid advertising, you name it. And what gives the Philippines a unique edge here is its blend of creative, tech-savvy talent that's also highly proficient in English. This makes it a global hotspot, attracting both local companies and international clients looking for these services.
It definitely seems like a logical next step in that digital shift. But digital marketing, that's a crowded global field. What gives the Philippines a distinct competitive advantage here, beyond just general demand, something that really translates into higher margins for entrepreneurs?
Digital marketing is kind of the archetypal high-margin service business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unlike selling products, you don't need huge capital for inventory or physical space. A healthy net profit margin for a well-run agency typically falls between, say, 20% and 30%. But if you get into highly specialized boutique agencies, low overhead, premium clients, margins can go way higher, even exceed 70%.
70% plus. That's
It
huge.
can be. Now, pricing structures vary. Freelancers, agencies in the Philippines might charge hourly, anywhere from $10 up to over $100. Project-based work often starts around $1,000.
Yeah.
But the key to maximizing profitability, the report suggests, is moving clients from hourly or project work to more stable, lucrative monthly retainers or flat-fee models. That gives you predictable revenue, stronger client relationships.
Yeah, that shift to retainers makes sense for stability
Yeah.
and for getting started. What's the operational model look like? How do these businesses actually find clients in such a competitive space?
Well, the beauty is the low barrier to entry and high scalability. You can launch an agency with minimal capital, often just a good laptop, reliable internet, and the necessary skills. This allows a clear growth path. You can start as a solo freelancer, then expand, hire talent as your client base grows. Acquiring clients, though, yeah, that requires a multi-pronged approach in a competitive market.
Hmm.
Effective strategies, things like building a strong profile on LinkedIn, maybe onlinejobs.ph. Targeted cold emailing works too, and leveraging referrals, maybe even incentivizing them. Building a portfolio, getting client testimonials, that's paramount for credibility, essential for attracting higher value clients. You see agencies like Spiralytics showcasing great results for big names like Ayala Malls, Globe Telecom. That builds trust.
Right. Proof of results is key.
And what's really fascinating here is this strategic evolution. Sure, local SMEs offer volume, but the higher margin play. That's leveraging Filipino talent for international clients. The winning strategy seems to be building a sort of hybrid agency, moving beyond just being a service provider to becoming a strategic growth partner. Someone who delivers measurable ROI like we increased your organic traffic by 200% or quantifiable lead conversions that allows you to command premium fees, escape that commodity trap of just competing on price.
Moving up the value chain again from general digital marketing, we hit IT and business process outsourcing, BPO, KPO. The Philippines' role as a global leader here is well known, a real cornerstone. But how is this sector evolving beyond its sort of traditional image?
Yeah, the Philippine BPO industry is definitely mature, a formidable economic force. It contributed something like $32.5 billion to the economy back in 2022, and it's still growing. But the really significant trend is the evolution beyond just voice-based call centers. The sector is increasingly dominated by what's called knowledge process outsourcing, or KPO. This involves more complex, knowledge-intensive services. We're talking high-demand fields like custom software development, fintech support, game development, financial analytics, and increasingly AI-driven services. And you can see this shift validated by homegrown successes. The Statista Growth Champions list. It features Filipino IT and software firms like Wayla's School Systems, My Busy Bee, companies showing exceptional revenue growth by offering these specialized tech solutions.
That's a very clear shift from the old call center model. So what does this mean for profitability and what kind of investment are we talking about to get into this higher value KPO space? Sounds like it might be more capital intensive than, say, digital marketing.
You're right, while it's highly profitable, entering the KPO space generally requires more capital than the other digital ventures we've discussed. Initial capital for, say, a custom software solutions firm could range from maybe $500,000 up to $5 million. Setting up a more comprehensive BPO-KPO operation, though, that might need anywhere from $1 million to maybe $15 million. That's to cover office space, high-end IT gear, and, crucially, acquiring talent. The fundamental profit driver here is essentially arbitrage, right? Leveraging the cost difference between highly skilled Filipino talent and the premium rates they command globally. The country has this deep pool of English-proficient, culturally adaptable, well-educated professionals. Combine that with a favorable service culture, government support. It creates a compelling business case. But maximum profitability, that's found in specialization, in high-demand niches. Ventures focused on supporting booming industries like telemedicine, fintech, e-commerce support, they can charge premium rates for their specialized know-how.
So it's really about niching down within an already specialized field. What are the key operational things to consider for a business looking to succeed in KPO, especially when talent is so obviously critical?
A successful KPO's number one asset, it's people. Simple as that. Operations have to be centered on attracting, training, and importantly, retaining top-tier local talent. software engineers, developers, animators, financial analysts. The business model could involve developing bespoke solutions directly for clients, or, more commonly, securing outsourced projects for major global corporations, think Google, Amazon, who already have a big outsourcing footprint in the Philippines. A good example of a successful model is Excelsis. They ranked #16 on that growth champions list. They specialize in providing full-time, dedicated remote staff to businesses in places like Australia, NZ, the UK, the US. It shows the power of a focused, high-value staffing model.
Makes sense. Focus is key.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the strategic path to high profitability in Philippine outsourcing seems to be niche specialization as a service.
Mm.
Instead of being a generalist, which is super competitive, the report suggests identifying a specific, high-growth global vertical and building world-class expertise there. Think maybe financial modeling specifically for renewable energy projects, or quality assurance just for mobile gaming, or compliance support for international fintech startups. This creates a competitive moat. It allows premium pricing. It transforms you from just a low-cost provider into an indispensable strategic partner. Which then raises the question for anyone listening. How can you identify your specific high-value niche?
Okay, moving away from the purely digital world now, let's shift focus to businesses catering to the everyday, non-discretionary needs of that rapidly growing urban population in the Philippines. These ventures are really about consistent demand, building strong local brands that serve those fundamental ongoing needs.
And first up, in this category, is mobile car wash and auto detailing. This is a prime example of a business thriving right at the intersection of rising asset ownership, more cars, and that demand for ultimate convenience. The market here is fueled by two strong, sustained trends. First, obviously, the consistent increase in car ownership across the Philippines. That just expands the total market for maintenance. The car care products market, in fact, is forecast to grow impressively through 2028, reflecting this. Second, and maybe more crucially, is the modern urban consumer's preference for on-demand doorstep convenience. For busy professionals, families in congested cities, think Manila traffic, the ability to get their car serviced at home or the office, that's a high-value proposition. It makes the mobile model inherently more attractive than driving to a traditional car wash.
That makes total sense, especially in gridlock cities where time is just gold. So how profitable can this actually be? And what's the path to those high margins for someone looking to get into this?
Well, this business offers a kind of tiered path to profitability with pretty significant potential for high margins. A basic car wash that provides your steady revenue base, usually priced between, say, 200 and 500 per vehicle. But the real profit, the report suggests, lies in upselling to high-margin services. Premium auto detailing, things like scratch removal, waxing, interior shampooing, engine cleaning that can command prices from $2,000 up to maybe, $15,000 per car.
15,000 for detailing.
Yeah, high-end detailing, yeah. A well-managed small-scale operation could potentially net around $35,000 a month. A DTI sample costing even suggests a basic wash can be profitable with a service cost around 61 against a market price of maybe €70. So, healthy base margin that grows with volume. And crucially, the mobile model is attractive because of its low overhead. The biggest cost of a traditional car wash renting that large commercial space is just gone. Initial capital for small, fixed-location wash is estimated around $250,000. Mobile setups could potentially be even more cost-effective to start.
That low overhead for mobile is clearly a huge advantage. But how does an entrepreneur scale this kind of business beyond just, one or two vans? What's the ultimate vision?
The business can definitely be launched lean and scaled methodically. You could start small, maybe even part-time, washing cars for friends, neighbors, just to validate the concept, get some cash flow. The essential startup assets: a suitable vehicle, portable generator, power washer, wet dry vac, initial cleaning supplies. Growth comes by moving up that value chain, expanding the service menu from basic washes to comprehensive high-margin detailing. Next stage is hiring, training staff to handle more volume. But the ultimate path to significant scale, that lies in leveraging technology, developing a branded on-demand car wash app that lets you manage bookings efficiently, dispatch teams, optimize routes, maybe even implement recurring revenue models like monthly subscriptions. This transforms it from just a manual service into a streamlined, tech-enabled platform.
Right, the tech layer is key for scaling.
And what really stands out here is that strategic evolution, from a labor business to a service business, and then, most lucratively, to a tech business. The report suggests not just thinking washing cars, but thinking building a technology-driven, on-demand automotive care platform. That initial mobile van, it's just your minimum viable product, your MVP, to prove the market and maybe fund that much more valuable tech investment later on.
Got it. Okay, next up, we're looking at modern laundry services. This venture feels incredibly resilient, almost like a constant in urban living. What's driving the market demand here? It feels like one of those truly essential needs.
You're absolutely right. The demand for professional laundry services is consistent, and it's deeply rooted in the practicalities of modern urban life. The primary market. Busy professionals, students in dorms, families living in condos or apartments where space for washing and drying is limited or non-existent. This creates a large captive customer base in densely populated areas like Metro Manila, Cebu, Davao, and the overall market is substantial. The Philippine laundry services market is projected to exceed $88 million in 2024. It reflects its status as just an essential service. It's a need that doesn't really go away, regardless of economic ups and downs.
So, a fundamental need for a big chunk of the population. What kind of profitability can someone expect from a modern laundry business, and what are the key costs that entrepreneurs really need to manage carefully?
The laundromat model is widely recognized for its potential to generate strong, stable profits. Well-managed shops can achieve pretty impressive net profit margins, typically ranging from 20% to 40%.
20 to 40% net. That's higher than a lot of retail.
Definitely higher than many retail or other service businesses. A small to medium-sized laundromat might gross somewhere between $30,000 and $100,000 per month. One financial analysis of a shop in Davao City even projected a maximized monthly profit around $38,694. With efficient management, entrepreneurs can often get their initial investment back within a pretty swift 12 to 18 months. That makes it attractive if you're looking for a relatively quick ROI. The main costs: initial equipment outlay, obviously, and then recurring operational expenses. Key ongoing costs you have to manage carefully are utilities. Water and electricity are major expenses, plus rent for the space and labor.
That's a quick ROI, always appealing. But beyond the numbers, what about the operational side, the risks involved, especially when competition might be very local, block by block even?
Yeah, success really requires careful planning and execution. Operational factors heavily influence profitability. The initial investment can vary a lot based on scale, location, quality of machines, anywhere from maybe $250,000 for a basic setup to over $1 million for a larger premium place. Location is absolutely critical. A prime spot needs two things: proximity to your target market, think condos, dense residential zones, universities, and crucially, access to reliable, uninterrupted water and electricity. Utility issues can kill you. As for risks, the main threats are operational. High utility costs can just eat your margins. Frequent machine breakdowns mean repair costs, downtime, unhappy customers. And yeah, the market, especially in prime spots, can have intense local competition. Any slip up in service quality, damaged clothes, lost items, late deliveries can quickly trash your reputation and send customers elsewhere.
So, how do you actually achieve that high end profitability, the 20–40% range?
The report emphasizes a kind of holistic strategy, balancing three critical pillars. First, location dictates customer access, non-negotiable. Second, efficiency, meaning cost control, especially utilities and equipment. Investing in high-quality, energy-efficient machines, that's crucial. It pays off long-term. Third, value-added services. Basic wash, dry, fold faces price wars. High-profit operators. They offer pickup and delivery, maybe dry cleaning or ironing, app-based booking and payment. Think of it like a three-legged stool. Prime location, efficient operations, and a superior value-added service offering. Get all three right. All right, shifting gears slightly, but staying with essentials, let's talk food and beverage. The F&B sector in the Philippines is incredibly dynamic, incredibly resilient. We're looking now at innovative models that use low overheads, maybe franchising, digital platforms, to really tap into that enduring Filipino appetite for great food.
Okay, that brings us to food cart and kiosk franchising. This feels like a quintessential Philippine business model. How does it offer such an accessible entry into F&B? And what's the demand like for these quick grab-and-go options?
Yeah, the food cart franchise model is definitely one of the most accessible, most proven ways to get into the robust Philippine F&B industry. It gives you a structured, lower-risk alternative compared to starting a full restaurant from scratch. The F&B industry itself is a consistent, major contributor to the country's GDP, helped by that strong cultural love for food and snacking. Food carts, kiosks, they're perfectly positioned to capitalize on this. They target high-foot traffic areas, malls, schools, offices, transport hubs, and the franchise model specifically. That lets new entrepreneurs immediately leverage the brand recognition, the established customer base of a known name. It significantly cuts down the marketing burden compared to launching a totally new brand.
Right, that brand recognition is a huge plus from day one. What about the financials? What kind of investment are we talking for a food cart? And what are the profit prospects for a franchisee? Seems like it could vary a lot.
It does vary, but generally it's defined by lower financial risk and a clear path to profit, assuming you get the brand strength and location right. The initial capital needed for a franchise cart is substantially lower than a full restaurant. A basic independent stall might start for as little as $50,000 to $200,000. Franchise packages for known brands, they vary widely, gives different entry points. For example, a potato corner school cart package was around $145,600. Master CMI, maybe $280,000. Brownies Unlimited, a bit higher at $920,000. Profitability, directly linked to brand popularity and location quality. A local study suggested 35% of independent cart operators earned over $20,001 a month. Potential at scale is much higher. Looking for Fruitus Holdings, they operate tons of food cart brands. They're a market leader. First half of 2024, they hit record revenues of P1.4 billion, with an impressive gross margin of 59.6%. Shows the immense potential of a well-run, multi-brand strategy.
Those are serious numbers, especially for fruit as operating multiple brands. Okay, what are the key operational things to consider, particularly regulations? Seems like there'd be quite a few permits needed for food.
Absolutely. Day-to-day success hinges on operational discipline and regulatory compliance. The single most critical factor, location, location, location. High-traffic spot is non-negotiable. Good franchisors know this and often help with site evaluation, feasibility studies. Operating legally? Yes. Requires a series of permits. Business name registration, DTI for sole props, SEC for core, barangay clearance, mayor's permit from the local government, BIR registration for taxes. And, crucially for food, a sanitary permit from the local health office to ensure food safety. Plus, health certificates for anyone handling the food.
Okay, quite a checklist.
It is.
Yeah.
But think about it this way. Entering a food cart franchise is fundamentally investing in a business system. You're buying the franchisor's playbook, their branding, marketing plan, training, supply chain. That mitigates a lot of startup risk. Your role as franchise shifts from being the innovator to being the executor. Your main contributions to profit, executional excellence day to day, and critically securing the absolute best location you can. So when you evaluate a franchise, look beyond just the food. Look at how robust their support systems really are.
Building on that food theme, we have a fascinating pair of models leveraging the digital shift: home-based baking and cloud kitchens. These feel like a very modern, digitally driven approach. Low overheads, reliance on online platforms. Tell us more about these two. How do they work? What makes them attractive?
Okay, so the home-based baking business, that lets people with culinary skills basically monetize their passion with minimal startup cost. You use your existing kitchen, turn a hobby into potentially a profitable venture. The cloud kitchen, sometimes called a ghost kitchen or virtual kitchen, takes it a step further. It's a delivery-only food prep facility. No physical storefront, no dine-in. This model dramatically cuts costs. You eliminate premium retail space, front-of-house staff, potentially lowering overall expenses by around 25% compared to a traditional restaurant. That cost efficiency is a major draw for entrepreneurs wanting to enter F&B without huge upfront capital.
That cost reduction sounds like a massive advantage. What about profitability? Can a home baker really compete? And what are the margins like for cloud kitchens without the dining room overhead?
Both models definitely offer potential for high profitability because of those lean cost structures. Home-based baking, for instance, can be very profitable, yet potential for high markups on ingredients. A common food industry pricing strategy is a 70% markup on capital, meaning 30% cost of goods sold. Some bakers even price items at 3 times ingredient cost, a net profit margin of 50–60%. That's considered a strong starting point for a home maker. Pretty impressive. And the market is huge baked goods sales in the Philippines, around $2 billion annually. Cloud kitchens, they're designed for higher profit margins, potentially 25% plus once you hit sufficient order volume, thanks to those savings on rent and labor. A hypothetical model. A cloud kitchen with 30% gross margin could realistically hit maybe 14% net profit. And the global market for cloud kitchens is just booming. Forecast projected hitting $227 billion by 2034. Shows a strong, sustained global trend here.
So high profit potential is definitely clear. But even with low overheads, I imagine there are still big operational challenges, especially being so reliant on online channels and, of course, regulations. It's still a food business. What are the common pitfalls here?
You're absolutely right. While these models cut some traditional costs, they bring new complexities and are subject to strict rules. Both models are critically dependent on a strong digital presence for survival. Customer acquisition relies heavily on digital marketing, social media like Facebook, Instagram, engaging food bloggers, influencers, and crucially, visibility on delivery apps like GrabFood and Foodpanda. They also share logistical challenges. managing delivery, ensuring food quality and temperature hold up during transit, handling online reviews and feedback, which can massively impact reputation. And regulations. Yes, these are not unregulated ventures. Both home bakers and cloud kitchens need formal business registration, DTI-SIC, LGU, BIR. Crucially, since they're classified as food manufacturers, they need a sanitary permit from the local health office and a license to operate, an LTO, from the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. That applies even if it's a home kitchen, though the government does offer simplified LTO application processes for micro-enterprises, which helps.
So compliance is still key, even from home.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here is that fundamental shift. You're replacing a physical storefront with a digital storefront. Success isn't about foot traffic anymore. It's about attracting and converting customers online. This means the critical success factor is mastering that entire digital customer journey. Online branding, food photography, social media engagement, optimizing your menu for delivery apps, managing third-party logistics. A delayed delivery or a bad online review can be just as damaging as a poorly cooked meal. So the most profitable operator isn't just the best chef, they're also the most adept digital restaurateur. Investing in digital marketing skills, operational tech, that's as vital as good kitchen equipment now.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, now we're moving into ventures that tap into powerful niche consumer trends and also classic asset appreciation models. These seem to require a really strategic understanding of specific market segments and maybe a focus on long-term value creation, often with a unique twist.
First in this section is health and wellness product reselling. This business is positioned right in the middle of a major secular trend in the Philippines. That nationwide shift towards healthier lifestyles, preventative self-care, a trend really accelerated by the pandemic. The market here is incredibly broad, includes everything from vitamins, dietary supplements to organic natural foods, fitness gear, essential oils, even those beauty from within supplements. And the financial scale is substantial. The nutrition and supplements market alone in the Philippines is projected to more than double from about $0.8 billion in 2022 to an estimated $1.4 billion by 2030. Shows a strong, long-term growth path.
That's significant growth, showing real staying power for this health trend.
Mm-hmm.
What does profitability look like for a reseller in this space? And how does the business model typically work, especially for someone just starting out? Seems like inventory could be an issue.
Well, the buy and sell model here can offer attractive profit margins and accessible entry points. Profitability is generally strong. A good rule of thumb is aiming for a net profit margin of 30–50% to give you a healthy buffer. More specific models within the niche, like curated subscription boxes, can consistently hit margins in the 20–40% range. Data from one drop shipping store in this category showed a solid 26.4% gross profit margin. The business can be launched with relatively low startup capital. Entrepreneurs can start by reselling on demand, only buying after getting an order, or use drop shipping. Both minimize upfront inventory investment risk. Success really hinges on identifying a specific niche with high demand but maybe lower competition, and then establishing reliable sourcing channels.
Okay, low startup cost, high potential margins. Sounds great, but what about sourcing? And critically, the regulations in such a sensitive area like health, you can't just sell anything off the shelf, right? That seems risky.
Absolutely not. Navigating supply chain and regulations is perhaps the most critical aspect here. For sourcing, entrepreneurs have options. Partner with established local manufacturers like Del Monte, who have their own quality control. Import from reputable international suppliers. Or work with local wholesalers distributors like Eastworld Sales Philippines. Buying in bulk is key for better margins. But regulations. Yes, this sector is highly regulated by the government to protect public health. Compliance is non-negotiable. Any business selling food, drugs, cosmetics, food supplements must ensure the products are properly registered with the Philippine FDA. That means verifying the manufacturer or importer has a valid license to operate, LTO, and that each individual product has a corresponding certificate of product registration, CPR. Selling unregistered products is illegal. Big penalties.
Right. Due diligence on suppliers and products is paramount.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? In a market saturated with choices, sometimes misinformation, the most sustainable, profitable path seems to be building a brand centered on curated credibility. Consumers are looking for trusted solutions. A successful reseller acts like a trusted editor, providing peace of mind. By building a brand around a specific value, maybe only clinically backed supplements or best locally sourced organic snacks, you can command a premium, foster loyalty, differentiate yourself from generic resellers just moving boxes. Profitability flows from becoming that trusted authority.
Expanding on that theme of sustainability and health, we come to agribusiness and sustainable farming. This feels like a deeply rooted sector, but one that's also undergoing a very modern transformation. What's driving the demand here, and how is the government supporting it? Is this just for big commercial farms, or are there smaller opportunities?
You're right. Agribusiness in the Philippines is definitely transforming. The demand for sustainably organically grown produce is steadily rising, driven by that growing group of health-conscious, environmentally aware Filipino consumers. There's a particularly strong market for high-value crops, organic vegetables, specialty herbs, things like free-range eggs, and this consumer trend is powerfully boosted by strategic government support. Agribusiness modernization is a key pillar of the National Development Plan. The government provides support through grants, loans for agricultural entrepreneurs. They're promoting tech integration, smart farming, drone tech to improve productivity, even for smaller-scale operations. It's not just for the giants.
That kind of government backing is huge, especially for such a foundational sector. So with this rising demand and support, what's the key to high profitability in modern agribusiness, especially for entrepreneurs maybe looking to make a significant impact, not just grow crops?
The key to unlocking high profitability, the report suggests, lies in disintermediating the traditional supply chain, cutting out the middleman. The biggest driver of profitability seems to be adopting a direct-to-consumer, or DTC, sales model. By selling produce directly to end consumers through farmers markets, dedicated e-commerce sites, maybe CSA subscription boxes, farmers can bypass those layers of wholesalers, distributors, retailers who traditionally grab most of the margin. This lets the producer keep a much larger slice of the final sale price. Plus, eco-friendly, certified organic practices. They aren't just good for the planet, they're a marketable asset. Consumers are increasingly willing to pay a premium for food they see as healthier, more planet-friendly. This lets sustainable farms command higher prices than conventional ones.
So it's about that direct connection with the consumer and leveraging that sustainability premium. Okay, what about different operational models then? Does this only apply to large farms in the countryside, or are there opportunities, say, for urban dwellers too?
Modern agribusiness is highly adaptable. It can be implemented in various settings. Beyond traditional farming in rural areas, there's a growing opportunity for urban farming models. Things like hydroponics, soilless cultivation, aquaponics integrating fish farming and plants, vertical farming, even backyard farming. These models are really well suited for supplying fresh produce directly to dense urban markets with minimal transport costs. Furthermore, significant investment opportunities exist in the crucial support infrastructure that enables D2C, particularly cold storage facilities, specialized supply chain logistics to ensure freshness from farm to table. Interesting, the support infrastructure too. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The most profitable, most forward-looking model the report points to is the farm-to-table tech enterprise. This isn't just farming. It's a vertically integrated, technology-enabled food business. It starts with sustainable practices, builds a compelling brand story around that, and then leverages tech e-commerce, maybe a CRM for managing subscriptions, social media for a seamless, transparent supply chain right from the farm to the kitchen. Profitability gets maximized because you control the whole value chain. You capture that sustainability premium directly, and that direct relationship. It gives you valuable data for planning, reducing waste. It essentially transforms a primary sector business into a potentially high-margin, tech-driven, consumer-facing enterprise. Very different from traditional farming.
Farm-to-table tech, fascinating concept. Okay, finally, we arrive at a true classic, real estate rental business. Still a cornerstone of wealth creation in the Philippines, offering that dual stream, cash flow from rent, and long-term capital appreciation. It's definitely capital intensive, but when managed strategically, it can provide stable, substantial returns. What does the market demand look like for rentals in the Philippines? Why is it considered so robust?
Well, the demand for rental properties is consistently high, and it's multifaceted. It's driven by really deep-seated demographic and economic trends. Rapid urbanization is a big one, fueling the need for residential spaces for young professionals, growing families, especially in metro areas. At the same time, the robust tourism sector, which relies heavily on domestic travel in the Philippines, creates strong demand for short-term rental accommodations. This mix of residential and tourism demand underpins a massive market. The Philippine real estate sector is valued at over PHP 1 trillion, makes it one of the country's most lucrative industries, period.
With demand that high, how do we actually measure profitability in rentals? It's not as straightforward as selling a product like a food cart. What are the key financial benchmarks a potential investor should be looking at here?
Right, profitability in rentals is assessed differently. primarily through rental yield and long-term asset growth, not a simple net profit margin. The main measure of cash flow profitability is rental yield. That's your annual rental income divided by the property's total value. While specific margins vary wildly, remember that tax-deductible expenses, repairs, maintenance, depreciation, taxes can eat up a significant chunk of gross rent, maybe 40% to even 90% in some cases. As a benchmark for returns, you could look at publicly traded real estate investment trusts, REITs, like RL Commercial REITs, RCR. They've been providing dividend yields around 6.67% to 7.10%. That significantly outperforms traditional money market instruments. And crucially, don't forget capital appreciation, the long-term increase in the property's value itself. Over time, that can represent a huge portion of your overall profit from the investment.
That's a great way to frame the returns yield plus appreciation. But real estate notoriously comes with its own unique complexities, regulations, risks. What should investors be really aware of when navigating this market?
Yeah, this is definitely a legally and fiscally complex business, requires diligent compliance. Operating a rental business legally means getting a mayor's permit from the LGU, registering with the BIR. Landlords also must be aware of the Rent Control Act, RA 9653. That caps annual rent increases for residential units in highly urbanized cities if the monthly rent is below $10,000. Commercial leases, importantly, are not covered by this act. Taxation is multi-layered. Income tax on rental earnings, subject to aggressive rates, 0.35% for individuals, then potentially 12% VAT if your gross annual rent exceeds about $3 million, or a 3% percentage tax if it's below that. And finally, all property owners pay an annual real property tax to the LGU.
Okay, so layers of taxes and regulations. What about operational risks? Seems less passive than people think.
Exactly. The seemingly passive nature hides significant operational risks. Prominent challenges, high vacancy rates that kills your cash flow, unexpected costly maintenance and repairs, they always happen, problematic tenants, unpaid rent, property damage, complex eviction processes, and just navigating the intricacies of lease agreements, tenant rights. It's active management.
So given all that, how do you achieve high profitability in this seemingly passive business? Is buy and hold enough?
The report argues pretty strongly that a purely passive buy and hold strategy often isn't enough for high profitability. The most successful landlords, they use an active strategic yield management approach. They treat properties less like static assets, more like dynamic businesses, constantly optimizing for occupancy, pricing. Kind of like how an airline manages seat sales. This might mean diversifying tenancy. Maybe one unit is long-term rental for stability, while an identical unit next door is on Airbnb for potentially higher per night rates, albeit with more work. Plus, consider the post-pandemic shift. Hybrid work has created a new dynamic. Traditional office vacancies, high, maybe 19.8% in Metro Manila. But demand for flexible serviced office spaces is thriving. An investor could capitalize by partnering with a flexible workspace provider, or even operating their own co-working space within their property, potentially generating significantly higher revenue than a standard long-term lease. To the modern, profitable landlord, they're an active portfolio manager. Adjusting strategy, serving multiple segments, maximizing occupancy, hedging risks, it's much more hands-on.
That's a great perspective. Okay, so we've explored the what and the why behind these high-profit ventures, but as we know, a great idea is only the first step. Successfully launching and scaling in the Philippines requires mastering that local operational regulatory landscape. This final section aims to provide a practical framework for you, the listener, to navigate those essential steps, overcome common hurdles, basically build the essential backbone of your business.
And understanding that framework really begins with navigating the Philippine business registration ways. The process of formally registering, yeah, it can seem daunting, multiple agencies involved.
Right.
But understanding it as a clear sequential process is the first step to getting it done right. Formal registration. It's a non-negotiable legal requirement. It legitimizes your business, builds crucial credibility with customers, partners, and importantly, it unlocks access to formal financial services, business loans, grants. Let's walk through that step-by-step pathway, which the report nicely calls a trust-building process.
A trust-building process. I like that framing. Okay, so for our listener, maybe someone just starting out, could you walk us through a practical step-by-step for, let's say, a sole proprietorship? What are the key documents, estimated costs, timelines for each stage so they can really visualize this journey?
Absolutely. Let's break it down simply. For sole proprietorship, your very first step is DTI business name registration. This just confirms your chosen business name, typically quite affordable, maybe $230 to $530, often pretty quick, usually 1-2 business days. You need the application form and a valid ID. Simple.
Okay, DTI first.
Yeah.
Got it.
Once your DTI registration is secured, next critical step is getting your local government unit, or LGU, permits. This is in the city or municipality where your business will actually be located. It starts with a barangay clearance from your local barangay hall. This just confirms your business complies with local community rules, usually runs about 300 to 500, may be done in one business day. Requires your DTI certificate and proof of address. With that barangay clearance, you then apply for the mayor's permit, sometimes called a business permit. This is at the Business Permits and Licensing Office, the BPLO, of your city municipality. This is your primary license to operate there. Costs here vary more, maybe 2,000 to 5,000 plus FEI timeline around 3 to 5 business days. For this, you'll need your DTI cert, barangay clearance, and a lease contract if you have a physical spot.
DTI, barangay, then mayor's permit. Okay. What's the final core step?
The final core step for all business types: registration with the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the BIR. This is purely for taxation. Once you complete this, your business gets its tax identification number, TIN, a certificate of registration, COR, or Form 2303, and the crucial authority to print, ATP, that lets you print official invoices or receipts. This step has a registration fee of $500 plus $30 for documentary stamp tax. It takes maybe 3 to 5 business days. You'll need BIR Form 1901 for sole props, your DTI cert, mayor's permit, and ID. Lastly, after getting your ATP from BIR, you need to work with a BIR accredited printer to actually print those official invoices. That typically costs $2,500 to $5,000, can take 1 to 2 weeks. Requires that BIR authority to print.
Okay, that seems like a clear sequence. DTI by barangay mayor.bir printer.
Exactly. Now remember, these costs, these timelines, their estimates for 2025 can vary by LGU. The process for partnerships and corporations follows a similar path, but starts with the SEC instead of DTI, and it's generally more complex, more documents needed. But the point is, this process, even with multiple steps, it's a logical trust-building pathway. Each permit validates another aspect of your business. It's not just bureaucracy, it's a foundational investment in building a verifiable, legal corporate identity. In a market that can be wary of informal operators, this formal identity is the bedrock for a trustworthy, credible, and ultimately high-profit brand.
Makes sense. Okay, but launching is just step one. Sustaining growth, achieving that high profitability means navigating a landscape of common challenges that can derail even promising ventures. What are some key hurdles entrepreneurs often face in the Philippines, and how can they proactively plan for them?
Indeed. Proactively understanding and planning for these hurdles is absolutely critical for a robust strategy. The first and often biggest obstacle is access to capital. Startups frequently lack the track record, the collateral that traditional banks want. Makes it hard to finance inventory, marketing, operations. The solution: a comprehensive business plan with detailed financial projections is essential for approaching funders. Beyond banks, explore alternatives. Government loan programs, DTI support, bootstrapping, self-funding, maybe angel investors or VCs for scalable ideas.
That's a universal challenge. What about local market dynamics? You mentioned the Philippines is vibrant, but does that mean it's crowded? It can be. That leads to the second hurdle: intense competition and brand identity. The market is vibrant, yes, but incredibly crowded. Over 99% of registered businesses are SMEs. This leads to fierce competition, and sometimes this gaya-gaya or copycat mentality dilutes brand identity, forces price wars. The solution has to be differentiation. Instead of fighting in broad, saturated markets, focus on a specific niche market or an underserved customer segment. Building an authentic brand with a unique value proposition, whether that's superior quality, amazing customer service, real innovation that's essential for standing out, building loyalty that's less about just the lowest price. Solid advice anywhere. What about the practicalities of just moving stuff around? For any business with physical products, logistics must be a headache, especially across islands.
Oh, definitely. Logistics and supply chain inefficiency are major pain points for businesses dealing with physical goods. Inefficient delivery, unreliable couriers, high shipping costs. It leads to delays, damaged goods, bad customer experiences, and critically, it eats into your profit margins. Rather than trying to manage complex logistics in-house, which can be a nightmare for SMEs, the recommended solution is often partnering with reliable third-party logistics providers, 3PLs. These partners can offer end-to-end solutions: warehousing, inventory management, consolidating shipments, optimizing delivery routes, can significantly cut costs and improve reliability.
Okay, outsourcing logistics makes sense. What about the regulatory environment itself? We saw registration as complex. Does it stay complex?
Navigating complex regulations and taxation is an ongoing challenge, yes. The Philippine regulatory environment can be difficult. Numerous permits, compliance rules, a complex tax system. Strict labor laws add another layer if you have employees. The proactive solution: treat professional services legal, accounting as a necessary investment, not an avoidable cost. Engaging professionals early can prevent very costly mistakes later. Using digital tools designed for the Philippine market, like online tax filing platforms, can also help streamline compliance, reduce the admin burden. Proactive compliance is always more cost-effective than dealing with fines and penalties.
Always cheaper to do it right the first time. Finally, for a growing business, talent is everything. How do SMEs in the Philippines attract and keep good people, especially when big corporations might offer more money?
Yeah, talent acquisition and retention is a significant hurdle. Startups, SMEs, they often struggle to attract and keep top talent when competing against the higher salaries, the established reputations of large corporations. The solution for SMEs is often to compete by offering a superior work environment and non-monetary benefits. This includes fostering a positive, supportive work culture, offering flexible work arrangements remote, hybrid models are popular, providing clear opportunities for professional development, career growth, and, where it makes sense, offering equity or profit sharing to give employees a real stake in the company's success. Compete on culture and opportunity, not just salary.
Right. Find other ways to provide value to employees.
And the common thread through all these challenges, they're fundamentally operational. Many entrepreneurs are passionate about their product, their idea, but they sometimes underestimate the importance of the business infrastructure. The most resilient, most profitable SMEs, they adopt an operation-centric mindset right from day one.
Yeah.
A great product is worthless if the business runs out of cash, can't deliver efficiently, or gets shut down for non-compliance. High profitability isn't just a great idea. It's a great idea supported by robust, well-designed systems for finance, logistics, compliance, HR. So the advice is, dedicate just as much strategic thought to building that operational backbone as you do to perfecting your actual product or service.
What an incredible deep dive that was into the Philippine economic landscape. We've really seen how that mix of strong domestic growth, moderating inflation, rising consumer spending, it creates genuinely fertile ground for new businesses. We've explored such a remarkable diversity of opportunities too, from those low capital, high scalability digital ventures like e-commerce, digital marketing, all the way to stable, essential services like modern laundry, mobile auto detailing. We also dove into innovative F&B models, food carts, home baking, cloud kitchens, and discovered those high-value niche markets like health and wellness reselling, sustainable agriculture, and even strategic real estate management.
And if we just connect all this back to the bigger picture, the report makes it really clear. High profit potential. It's not a guarantee of success. Not at all. Realizing these returns hinges on much more than just having a compelling idea. The most successful ventures, it seems, will be led by entrepreneurs who are, 1, digitally savvy, 2, operationally excellent, really building those robust systems for finance, logistics, talent, and 3, legally diligent, viewing regulatory navigation not as a burden, but as a foundational step in building credibility. Ultimately, this deep dive shows us that in a dynamic, rapidly evolving market like the Philippines, the true competitive advantage for you as an entrepreneur, as an investor, it isn't just about spotting the next trend. It's about building the internal discipline, the systems that allow you to adapt, execute flawlessly, and truly capture the value of these opportunities. So maybe a final thought to leave you with. How might applying that operation-centric mindset change the way you approach your next big idea, no matter where in the world it might be?